Things will enter programs, they'll exit programs, but at the end of the day, as long as we know our why, then we're going to make the right decision as to what's in our program right now. It's really, really easy to find the 6, 7, 8, 10 things that are missing from your program. And there's always going to be something because we only have a finite amount of time. Even if you're training 5 or 6 days a week, there's always something different that you could be doing or something extra that you could be doing. And it's really important to recognize that that is the truth, because if we're constantly trying to find what we're not doing, we're constantly going to get drawn to just changing for the next new thing just because it's not there at the moment. And that's not the important thing. The important thing isn't to be doing all the things that you're not. The important thing is that if you know why you're doing something, why you're training and what you're training for, then the important thing is that you find those things that are currently serving that role and push them hard. And if you achieve that and if you follow your why, then there's going to be less concern as to what else you could be doing to get those same gains. And that's important, because if we're constantly finding the next thing, we're never going to stick to something long enough for it to actually work. And then you actually don't achieve that why that we're talking about is so important for us to try and achieve. An example of this, it would be something like trying to build up lower body strength. And we might look at it and say, okay, I'm going to build it up really basic. We're going to go bilateral, super heavy. I just want to push my squats. And if you're building up lower body strength so that you can build up that base, so that you can have some level of strength underneath to help keep you resistant from injury and all that kind of stuff, for sprinting performance, just because your goal is to run faster, then that is a valid option. But then you might turn around and say, well, look, I've currently only got one heavy squat day a week. It'd be really nice to do some single leg work. So then all of a sudden you throw in something like a split squat. Now you've gotten a second day worth of squat work, and realistically most people can tolerate 2 heavy squat days, at least to a degree, at least relatively heavy. Not for heaps amount of sets, but most people can handle close to that. Then you might think, well, I need to add some level of work where I'm getting into deeper ranges, because maybe your 2 squats right there, you're not actually getting into a super deep range and you want to build it throughout the whole range of motion. So then maybe you decide to do something like a Spanish squat or something like a sissy squat that lets you get heaps of range of motion. And you want to push that hard again, because all of a sudden, oh yeah, it's really important for me to build up that strength through all of that range. And then you throw in a sissy squat. And then all of a sudden you talk about, okay, well, single leg strength is fine on one leg when you're a bit more balanced, but I also want to try and do something that's going to challenge my coordination and something a little bit more reflective of that gait cycle. So maybe you throw in a walking lunge with an aqua bag or something, so that you can be a little bit less stable and actually have to plant, and the muscles in your foot actually need to work to try and keep you on the ground, so we have a little bit less external stability. All of a sudden I've just gotten 4 exercises that all work on the strength of the quads and the glutes, and you're not going to be able to push those 4 things well enough. And as you get to that more higher level of volume, you're going to actually push each of those less, or you're going to burn out. And there's no 2 ways about that. You're not going to be able to handle that much unless you have built up to it over a period of time. So there may be 1 person or 2 people watching this video that can reasonably turn around and tell me, I push all 4 of those exercises really hard, I recover from them really well, it's not affecting my sport that I'm doing all of that, and I'm actually getting maximum benefit out of all of them. If a lot of people watch this video, we might get a couple of those. But 98% of people can probably get a pretty high percentage of the maximum benefit in those muscle groups out of 1 squat day a week, and making sure that they push that squat day really, really hard. Maybe we choose one of those other variations and add them into our accessories for 2 sets. And realistically, if we do that, if we take that less is more approach, then we're going to actually be able to get more out of those. And then the really, really fun thing about it, and the thing that I like about having all these different qualities, is that we can then go and focus on the other qualities at a later point in time. So if I've got those, going back to the earlier example, if I've got those couple of those 4 variations that I want, then I'm going to choose 2 that I can push really, really hard and really, really heavy, because lifting heavy is fun. And then I'm going to push it, maybe choose another one to throw in that accessory spot at some point in the week, whether it's on the same day or a different day, to again push pretty hard. Maybe I throw in something a little bit lower fatigue for technique or something like that as well. We're going to have multiple variations, and I'm not saying that this is like the maximum amount of sets that you can do, because every person's going to be different. But the really important thing to understand is that whenever you make one decision, it is excluding a whole bunch of other decisions that you make. It's not just about whether or not I do a barbell back squat. It's about whether or not I do a barbell back squat, and I exclude all of these other pieces of equipment and all these other exercises that I could be doing. And if we understand that decision, and we understand that it's okay to exclude all of these other things that are over to the other side, then we're going to make decisions not only more confidently, but we're going to be able to make decisions with the idea of where we might go from there. Now, the second part of this conversation is not just that we can't do everything, right? Like, there's going to be an infinite amount of options. But the second part of this conversation is understanding your why and why you're doing things, and that always influences the how. And that comes back to a really important question of, what are you training for? If you know that you're training just for the fun of it and you really enjoy it, then make sure that you can push that thing really hard, because that's enjoyable, and make sure that you have time to do that, but also explore, do more fun things, do more, all that kind of stuff. If you have a certain goal in mind, if you're training for a powerlifting competition and you're 2 weeks out, it's probably not the smartest decision to go away from your barbell back squat 2 weeks out, because you want that level of specificity and technique development with your training, rather than just doing squatting just for the sake of squatting. If you're a sports person in or out of season, whenever you are, you have specific goals and specific things that you want to chase after. Some people need to put on size so that they can play up against bigger bodies. Some people just need to get faster down the court. Some people need to be able to repeat those fast efforts up and down the court. Whatever it is, right? Like, you're going to have different decisions that you need to make, and those different decisions should be influenced by your why, because then you can choose your how better. I think that that's all that I want to say on that. It's really important to understand that you're going to have the different things. Now, the last little bit that I want to add is how to kind of manage this, because if there are infinite options, then it makes it a really, really big job to manage all that stuff. And realistically, it's just the same way that you prioritize anything. If I've got a to-do list and I've only got so much time in a day, then I'm going to choose the most important things for right now first. I'm going to choose the things that have the biggest ROI. I'm going to choose using an order that makes sense and actually makes sure that I get the biggest squeeze out of each session. And it's the same exact thing for training. So if you're looking at your goals and your why and what you're trying to achieve, and also the time frame that you actually have to achieve it, then you should be prioritizing based on those goals and that time frame and all that kind of stuff. And once you have those, once you understand those and the order that they're in, then attribute certain things that are going to benefit that. So if we go with the most simple goal of just trying to put on size for summer because it's going to be sunny outside and you want to look good, right? Perfect goal. Then you're going to put that hypertrophy work right there, nice and early. And you want to build that up super early and have that as your primary exercises and everything like that. If you think that your calves are behind the rest of your body, then put that at the beginning of your sessions, not at the ends, just because that's where calf work goes, right? You prioritize based on that. And on the flip side, if you've got a goal that's really far out, so maybe it's this summer, but then next summer I'm going to go do, I don't know, a bodybuilding competition, then maybe I'm going to play around with some other things first. Maybe I'm going to do some other things that are more pertinent to my goals right now, even though I have that bodybuilding competition down the line, right? It's just, It's just about prioritizing and putting things in order. And if you don't really have a priority, then flip a coin and choose between two things. And if you know that you really want to work on 4 different bicep curl variations in one period of time, but that's a lot of bicep volume and you don't want to tear your bicep off the bone, then pick 2 of them, put the other 2 in a list somewhere in your notes app or somewhere on the side of the program. And when you eventually get tired of one of those bicep curl variations that are currently in your program, swap the other one in. It's really useful to have a backlog or a priority list of all the things that you want to be able to do. So then when you have the opportunity to do them, you can actually tap into that, and not only does it make your programming easier, but it also gives you something to look forward to all the time, which honestly for me makes me train harder. If I know that there is something on the horizon, then I'm going to push the current variation that I've got or the current program that I've got so much harder, because I want to make sure that I can get the most out of this while it's here. And put time limits on it if you need. If you know that having something on the horizon and knowing, oh, I've only got 4 more weeks on this because I'm in week 8, then that's perfect. Build on that. Make sure that you get the most out of your current exercise before you go on to the next. This is all really important to do, especially when you're someone that is scattered. So make sure that you're factoring all of these things into your decisions, so that you can get more out of your training. And if you need help with it, if you need help with it, then find a coach that can help you prioritize, can help you make those decisions to best suit your goals. Because having somebody else involved in the decision making is really, really useful for a lot of people. And sometimes offloading that training program so that you can just rock up and do it and ask them, hey, when am I looking at doing this? And it's then, that really helps and goes a long way as well and helps motivate you and push you to train. If you got any questions, shoot me a DM, put a comment in the comment section down below. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.